On All Hallows Eve, October 31st, in 1833, the Zion Episcopal Church became officially incorporated. In 1834, the present building was built, making it the oldest standing church in the village today. Zion was named after Mount Zion, in direct relation to its location. It stands on the hilltop of Cedar Street at the very heart of the village. The Zion Church of Dobbs Ferry is considered the mother church of the Hudson Valley, directly responsible for the founding Episcopal churches in Hastings, Irvington, and Tarrytown. Peter Vanbrugh Livingston acquired this land from his father, who purchased the farmland in the same manner as the Storms family had after the Revolutionary War. Livingston donated his land for the Zion Church. Oscar Irving, Washington Irving's nephew, and James Hamilton, Alexander Hamilton's son, were among those who led the organization of the congregation. Washington Irving served on the vestry. In 1977, Barbara Schlachter was among the first women ordained priests in the United States. Bell systems were installed. The first was donated in 1919 by Colonel Frank Q. Brown as a thanksgiving for our nation's victory in World War I. It still rings in the beginning and conclusion of services on Memorial Day. The second bell system was installed in 1947 to play bells and chimes. It fell into disrepair and a new system was installed in 1988, playing chimes and hymns that can be heard throughout the village. Zion expanded its building and property up until as late as 1876. In the process, it purchased one of the oldest homes in the village from a riverboat captain to be the church's rectory, and this is where our story begins. An early description of the church and a history of Westchester County, published in the 1840s, mentions the fine tombstones to be found in the churchyard of Zion. However, today there is no trace of a cemetery on the grounds. A letter was recently discovered in the Zion Church files. It's written in the handwriting of Elizabeth Carston. It was 1929. The current priest left suddenly. The church had no one to tend the sermons. A new priest was summoned, but he and his family were not due to arrive until later in the fall. The rectory was abandoned. The priest sexton agreed to sleep there. His first night in the house was to be his last. He emerged in the morning claiming the place was haunted. He claimed he saw nothing. It was what he heard that frightened him. No one made mention of the rectory's disturbance, and no one entered the rectory at night after that. That fall, Father Carston arrived with his wife, Margaret, and baby daughter. It was a cold day, but they were warmly greeted and celebrated with food prepared by the congregation. An evening thunderstorm rolled in. Exhausted, they decided to settle in early. Undeterred by the excitement, the baby awoke for her usual 3 a.m. feeding. Margaret dressed and went down to the kitchen to warm her daughter's bottle. The storm was wailing. So was her daughter. Between the cries and the claps of thunder, she definitely heard someone on the stairs. She called out. No reply. Hesitantly, she peered towards the stairs. No one. But still, as she stood there watching, she could hear the unmistakable sound of heavy footsteps on the stairs. She stood frozen momentarily. There was only one staircase, only one way back. Jolted by her daughter's cries, she felt a cold chill run through her, and she darted up the steps to her daughter. She couldn't sleep. Still awake come morning, she told her husband of her experience. Not quite sure what to think, or even how to react, he offered to rise for the following night's feeding, and so he did. There was no storm the following night, making the footsteps unmistakable. The ghost of the Zion Rectory joined the Carstons most regularly in the evenings. In time, they grew accustomed to the footsteps on the staircase, one step after another. But after all, they were only footsteps, and they continued to be heard for well into the next 40 years. There begins the story of Zion, but I am told that's not where it ends. There are those that claim to see a glimpse of a man, large in stature. He's been sighted on the grounds as he strides by the east entrance of the church. However, when pursued, the figure vanishes without a trace. No smoking is permitted in the rectory of Zion Church, and yet, on occasion, the house fills with the ever-so-familiar aroma of a cigar, and once again someone is heard climbing the stairs. Generations of clergymen and their families have become all too familiar with these occurrences, believing it to be that of a riverboat captain. Captain Smith owned the house and the grounds up until the church purchased it in 1865, and perhaps it's he, we are told, who returns home and heads up the staircase for a better view of the river. But wait! Who's the mysterious woman in white some claim to see? She patrols the halls of the rectory, floating from room to room. No one's been able to figure out who she was, or why she makes such regular rounds. Surely it's her face, seen peering out the windows of the rectory when there's no one home. The ghostly activity at the rectory continued up until the rectory was being renovated. Since then it's all been quiet and peaceful at Zion. Or has it?